Everybody, welcome to this short lecture on argumentation and making claims in literature. I really enjoyed reading through your discussion board postings, and so many of you have really wonderful insights to make about the stories that we're reading. And as you got to work with certain terms from last week's reading, such as claims and warrants, I'm going to go over sort of the anatomy of argumentation in this video and end with a look at someone's anonymous submission. It's a work that responded to the question of, are we meant to sympathize with the doctor? And so I'm going to go over some terminology at the very beginning of this lecture and wrap up with a look at one of your peers' submissions for the question of sympathy towards the doctor in William Carlo Williams' short story, The Use of Force. So if we think about it, we make claims all the time in our everyday conversations. A claim is a debatable statement backed up by evidence. And what I'd like to do is just highlight this term warrant. I think warrant, or sometimes called assumptions, are terms that we don't normally think about that explicitly. And I like to think of this term as a kind of invisible glue that holds the claim and evidence together. So, for example, I might make a claim about the weather. I might say, well, it's a sunny day today. And that might be almost like a statement of fact, I guess, if if we know completely that it's sunny. But my evidence for that statement of, well, it's a sunny day, I mean, it has to be backed up by, looking out the window and seeing that it is indeed sunny. And we make statements like this all the time, I think, about food, about films, and we also make claims about literature. So, for example, I have a statement here. Somebody could say, Orientation is a good story because there are bizarre characters in it. That's a claim about the quality of the short story Orientation. And the evidence is that there are bizarre characters in that story, bizarre characters with bleeding palms, and coworkers who are by day just office workers, and by night they're serial killers. And so the underlying warrant to this statement here would be that, well, I'm assuming that good stories include bizarre characters. And I think it's pretty obvious that other people could have a very different opinion about that. Perhaps I could say, well, Orientation is a bad story because there are bizarre characters. So all of this is to kind of point to the question of, well, who's right? Especially when interpreting literature, we don't want to fall into the pitfall, fall into the faulty notion that, oh, you're right and I'm right and everybody is right. I think there's kind of a stereotype that, literature is so subjective and there's no sort of final truth. But I do think that when you make an argument about literature, I mean, you are making an argument with evidence and with certain warrants in place. And the evidence most valued really has to be details from the work itself. In other words, direct quotations. That's what I mean by textual evidence. Some of the feedback I've been giving to you is that you need to back up your ideas with textual evidence, and I think direct quotations are powerful indications that your claims are well grounded and that you're not just projecting your own biases or your own kind of experiences onto the text. And the reader's trust in what you're saying gets built when you're able to quote widely and represent the original text faithfully. So here, I'd like to turn our attention to someone's answer to the question of sympathy. Are we meant to sympathize with the doctor, with the narrator in the use of force? And even though it's such a short story, there's so much there, and And so I wanted to take a look at somebody's response. This person responded with the following paragraph. In this story, I believe that we're meant to sympathize with the doctor. Notice that this is a claim statement. It's a debatable thesis. We are meant to sympathize with the doctor. Some of you, didn't agree with that. Well, here's somebody who says in our class, yes, we're meant to sympathize with the doctor. And he goes on to say, near the end of the story, the doctor completely breaks down after finally overcoming his patient. The doctor recognizes evil as a quote-unquote social necessity and makes his reader feel his pain for the first time. I thought there were a lot of good ideas here. And my question to this student would be, well, how can we know? What's the textual evidence that you would bring in? And I just tried to revise it by incorporating certain pieces of the original text into this response. And I have this I have the quotations in blue, all the new wording in bolded. And so here's an expanded and revised version. In this story, I believe that we're meant to sympathize with the doctor. Because the story uses the first-person narrative, we're automatically seeing things from his perspective. And though the doctor is not exactly likable in his harsh treatment of the sick little girl, we experience the struggle of a doctor trying to help a sick but resistant patient. We hear the thoughts and feel his conflict as he states, "Perhaps I should have desisted and come back in an hour or more. No doubt it would have been better. But I have seen at least 2 children lying dead in bed of neglect in such cases, and feeling that I must get a diagnosis now or never, I went at it again." The doctor is aware of his patient's animal-like resistance to his treatment, how her mouth is bleeding, and how she was quote-unquote screaming in wild, hysterical shrieks. And it's no wonder, perhaps, that near the end of the story, the doctor completely breaks down after finally overcoming his patient. He is brutally honest as he confesses that I too had gone beyond reason. I could have torn the child apart in my own fury and enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to attack her. I'm gonna stop here because already you can see in the revision that I'm using at least 3 sort of direct quotations. Rereading this, I think I could add some more interpretation and explanation to connect my ideas back to the quotation. But I hope that you can kind of see how, even with a short paragraph, with a lot of good ideas, there's a lot of room to expand. And we do this by pointing out some elements, that are kind of, I think, not obvious, but kind of strong qualities in a story. So not every story has like a particularly strong, say, point of view. I think a third person narration, it doesn't feel like there's anything that sort of special or notable about point of view. But in this story, as many of you guys noted, we're kind of really stuck in this doctor's perspective. Not only is the first person narration used, but there's no use of quotation marks. And that really adds to kind of the feeling that we're trapped in the doctor's head. And we see everything, everything's mediated through the doctor's eyes. And so I think the sense of almost collusion with the doctor as a reader, we kind of really at a visceral level feel the balance of different feelings he has, like his determination to help this patient, but also his very human and very understandable feelings of fury, at this screaming child, and perhaps William Carlos Williams wants us to understand something about just how, doctors, I mean, we kind of see them as these infallible figures, who should help their patients, without any feelings. But here we see how the doctor, even as he's trying to help, is also filled with very opposite feelings of helpfulness, of fury, of even taking pleasure in this child's pain. So anyway, but I wanted to wrap up, this video with just taking a look at how we might go about, revising with textual evidence in mind. I hope this was helpful to you, and please, as usual, feel free to email me or post onto discussion board with any questions that you might have. Okay, thank you.